to our Q&A, and we have, just like Professor Schaefer has been saying, we have lots of questions here. But we'll give priority to those who are here. If you have any question at all that you want to ask, just feel free and just raise up your hands. And okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schaefer. I'm not fully figured this question out, so bear with me. But I was wondering, have you, over your time, have you seen an evolution or a change in the objections raised against theism or Christianity in particular? A background to that is I kind of went to university, not too long ago, went to university where the hard questions were like, does that make empirical sense to believe in a scientific world? Does it make empirical sense to believe in a God that does all the things in the Bible? I left the university with most of my folks in my maths degree thinking, actually, they would identify themselves as spiritual or kind of more agnostic rather than your hard atheism, as I had known going into university. So curious, what are your experiences been?
Very good question. I think there has been some motion. I debated Steven Weinberg in Texas in the year 2000. Weinberg, the most famous physicist of the last third of the 20th century, the existence of God, and I smashed him. It wasn't even close. And my talk was all about the Christian origins of science, all the pioneers of modern science or virtually all of them being Christians, and a great many today being Christians. And in his, when the questions came up, somebody asked him, and of course, a whole part of the lore against Christianity is it's impossible to be scientists and Christians. So the fact that there are so many of them that are is a little embarrassing. So somebody asked Weinberg, well, how do you account for the fact that so many of these scientists were Christians and so many are Christians? And he said, I understand that. He was, he must have been 75 years old at the time. He said, as you get older, your friends and family start to pass away. And he almost shed tears. I mean, he was moved. I was in the front row looking right at him. He was moved. And he said, so I understand that. They want to pretend there's something ahead of them. That's it. Now, I never met a scientist who's a Christian who's mostly interested in pretending there's something ahead of him. So I didn't really agree with that statement, but that's how he dealt with it. That's part of my answer is that there is a recognition that science seems to be uniquely Christian in its backgrounds and to a significant degree in the present. And I think atheists are coming to grips with that as well, so they don't make such rash statements as you might have heard in the past. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask you a question from this. As a Christian, how do you approach scientific discoveries that challenge traditional interpretation of Scripture?
Can I see that? I'll repeat it. As a Christian, how do you approach scientific discoveries that challenge traditional interpretations of Scripture? Okay. Well, I don't think there are any, for starters, but there are things that, we're going to get into this question of evolution, I'm sure. Chemists, physicists, and mathematicians, lots and lots of Christians among them. Biologists, the crowd is thinner. We have wonderful, in my university and every unit, there are wonderful, very distinguished biologists. Francis Collins, head of the Human Genome Project, who are Christians. But I would say that the fraction is smaller in biology departments, and they would say it's because of evolution. Now, I guess what I need to say here is that among Christians, there is a whole range of ideas about evolution. One can name a bunch. Recent creation would say that the universe and our planet are no more than 10,000 years old. That's not my position, but if it's true, then my response would be at some later date that God must have created the universe with apparent age. So that's one position, recent creation. Another position, we might call it old earth creationism. It's a recognition that God, this is my position, that God created the universe 13.7 billion years ago, this planet 4.7 billion years ago, and that's historical. Now, where my position would come under some criticism is I do believe that Adam and Eve were the first human beings from whom all of us are descended. And I think they were created by fiat, de novo. Third position, theistic evolution, might be a position that many of you hold. The idea is that same thing about the age of the universe, the age of the earth. They would have a range of positions within theistic evolution on Adam and Eve. Some would say that Adam and Eve were real persons created de novo. Others would say that Adam and Eve were not real people, that this story is figurative. And then, above all of those, we have atheism. So a bunch of different views are possible. I've said a little bit about my view. What's the next question?
Thank you. So since
People may want to ask about that. They certainly can.
since we are talking about evolution, and so how do you, if the universe is 13.7 billion years old, well, according to the Bible, it's about 6,000, 10,000. How do you reconcile the biblical interpretation that people have with the scientific interpretation?
Yeah, so the position of the old earth creationists is that the days in Genesis 1 are indefinite periods of time. And, that's what it is. And I think that's the right understanding. Many people have written about this. Hugh Ross from Caltech has written about this. John Lennox from Oxford University has written about it. I've written about this. I did not bring a copy of my book with me, which is sad, but I can send Desmond a few copies if anybody's interested. My book is, the title of my book may be on one of these slides if we ever get there.
It should be on this slide.
Yeah, it should be on a slide, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is a straightforward question. Does God and science contradict?
No. God created not only human beings, but all the laws of physics and mathematics, and he made the whole thing so it can't be contradicted by anything he made.
Is there any other question in the audience before I move to the next one? Yes.
Yeah. I realize this is a massive generalization. I think one of the key takeaways of Newtonian physics is that the universe is ordered and predictable. And with quantum physics, that introduces a lot more of, if you like, of a chaotic worldview. How do you understand that? And do you think what, if any, is the significance of God writing quantum physics into the small scale of the universe?
That's a good question. So quantum physics is what I do for a living. So if I can't answer that one, I'm in bad trouble. I don't think that quantum mechanics produces a chaos in the universe. I don't think there's anything that ever happened that God didn't see in detail in advance. Now, what quantum mechanics does do is it does move things into views of probability. Okay? So if we want to measure the dipole moment of the water molecule, and all of you should be deeply concerned about this because your bodies are some big fraction of water. The dipole moment, the fundamental measurement of the polarity, for those two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom in the middle, it's a polar molecule. It's more positively charged on one side, more negatively charged on the other. If one wants to measure that, the answers from quantum mechanics, if one wants to understand that, if you measure it, you get a particular value. Okay? What quantum mechanics tells you is that there are certain probabilities of different values of that dipole moment. It's 1.84 Debye units. You all ought to know that by heart. It's a very important number. The probability, but now there are other states of the water molecule than the ground state. There are excited vibrational states, excited rotational states, excited electronic states. All these excited states will have slightly different values of the dipole moment of the water molecule. So you won't, every single time you make the measurement, you won't get the value that applies to the ground state. But if the water molecule is at 5 degrees Kelvin, like really close to absolute zero, the probability of measuring 1.84 Debyes is 99.99999 until you can keep saying nines until you get to breakfast tomorrow morning. That's what you're going to get at a low temperature. Now, you raise the temperature and you have a distribution of these things. And what quantum mechanics will tell you is that room temperature, here we are at room temperature, what fraction of all those measurements will give particular values. So, yeah, there is some uncertainty, but I don't think it's chaos. I mean, it's understandable, I think.
Thank you for that. Moving on to ethics. How do you see the role of faith in ethical decision making within scientific advancement, such as AI or technology?
AI is here. We do it. Machine learning, we're pretty good at it. It's helpful. I don't think it, it provides a way to predict things which we couldn't otherwise do. AI is just pattern recognition, really. You put all kinds of information into a computer and it can give you a certain information. It's being used in American football now. The team gets the ball at a certain point, and should they kick it or should they play with it? They've got this all figured out by AI. Every possible yard line that you could be on, all these things, it tells you what to do. And apparently they're doing that now. I saw an event over the weekend in which one of the teams kept playing the ball when they should have kicked it away. Well, they made a big mistake, but that's what AI told them to do. So I don't think it's threatening. I mean, there's nothing AI can do that we don't understand, I guess is what I would say.
What would be the role of faith in ethical decision, like in advance of technology? Do you think that there's a position of faith to say this is good or this is bad?
There certainly can be. I mean, I'm not a biologist, but I would not, if I were, I wouldn't want to do experiments on unborn children, even though it may be that they'll be aborted shortly thereafter. I wouldn't feel good about that. Human beings are beautifully and wonderfully made. So that's a case where I would have reservations. A lot of people that are not Christians wouldn't want to do that either, though. I'm not saying I'm alone in that, but I would say, ethics come from God, and what we know is in the Bible.
So, next question will be, but before I move on to this, is there any other question in the audience before I move on? Yes.
There was something in your PowerPoint presentation that you skipped over about accepting faith into your life in your 30s. Can you expand a little bit on that and how that happened?
Yeah, I was 28 when Jesus Christ came into my life, and I do have something here on that. It's going to take a while to find it, though. It was 28. I was in my fourth year as a professor at Berkeley. I was doing okay. I did this great scientific thing, which you didn't have time for. It's too bad. It's so good. Yeah, I wish I knew how to get through these things faster, but I'm getting there. I've got myself at Georgia now. I'm traveling all over the world. I like to travel, especially to see beautiful things. Now, I've told you that my wife studied art history. And that's good because we're not going to talk about citations. Okay, we are going to do this. She likes to go to museums, and I go with her. Although my approach to the museum is a little bit different than hers. I go to the bookstore first, and I have all these postcards about the famous things, and I say, oh, I know about that one. I've seen that one before, and that one, and that one. I pick 4 or 5 of these things, buy the postcards, and wander around the museum trying to find them. And when I find one, I stare at it for about 10, 15 minutes, like in the Uffizi. You know, they got Venus on the half shell, and right next to it, Primavera by Botticelli. And I could look at those things for a long time. But then when I'm done, I find a comfortable place and take a nap. Well, my wife is looking very carefully at everything in the museum, and I'm always behind on my sleep, so it's a good combination. Anyway, let's talk. This is going to get us into your question. Okay, it may not seem like I'm getting there, but let's talk about what happened to me. Okay, and I think that this is from Michelangelo. It's on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Anybody been there? Yes. Okay. Now we're getting some people are eager to get into this. It's hard staring up at that thing for a long time, isn't it? Yeah, it's really hard. They need beds in that, so you can just lie down and enjoy it instead of looking up there so hard. But I think the essence of this, the creation of Adam, as Michelangelo called it, is initiative, namely God's initiative. I think the initiative, the beginning, comes from God. And God offers a beautiful life to every human being, a beautiful, wonderful life, not only now, a joyful life, which is what he gave me, but on in through eternity. So that initiative, to me, is tremendously important. However, there is a problem. This is Hieronymus Bosch. This is a dreadful painting. I'm glad you can't see much of it. This is showing every form of human depravity imaginable. And what did Hieronymus Bosch call it? He called it the garden of earthly delights. I mean, anything bad that human beings can do to each other, they're all there. And I think this does point to a separation of human beings from God. And it's all about selfishness. You know, each one of us, I hate to say this, believes that the universe revolves around us. Some of you agree with that and some don't. Everybody here and everybody everywhere else believes that the universe revolves around us. We may think there are some artificial distinctions otherwise that are made, but we really think we're the center of it. And this selfishness, it comes with humankind. It's there, and not always expressed in things as bad as this. Don't get me wrong, but this problem of selfishness, or sin, as the Bible calls it, it's universal, and we know it's not right. We know it's not right. Pride, selfishness, arrogance, these are all problems that have challenged me and perhaps some of you as well. So there's this separation. Oops, that's not the one that goes forward. I'm confusing these two devices for each other. And there's a solution. This is Christ of St. John at the Cross. This is by Salvador Dali. So this is a much more recent painting. Some of you know Dali's paintings, but I know I like this one. It's very good. And the solution is the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. What does it accomplish? For every person that gives their life to Jesus, it accomplishes the forgiveness of all that selfishness that we have. I think there's less of me than there was before I became a Christian, but it hadn't all gone away. But it is going to go away eventually. His death on the cross paid the penalty for all of my selfishness, all of my failures. Now, where does that leave us? Where did it leave me when I was 28 years old? With a necessary response. This is Rembrandt, the Return of the Lost Son, and each of us is in some way like that. We have to run to Jesus. We have to run to Jesus, confess that we have failed and continue to fail, and ask him forgiveness for all our sins and be a part of his family. So this is what happened to me when I was 28 years old.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So since we are talking about the new creation, what role will science play in the new creation? Do you think there's a role that science will play in the new creation?
I think Desmond has asked me, what role will science play in heaven? And my answer to that is, I don't know. I think it's going to be exciting, and there are going to be challenges for everybody in heaven. I think it's going to be wonderful. I mean, the Apostle Paul said, no human mind has ever imagined or seen what wonderful things God has prepared for those who love the Lord. And is science a part of that? Could be. There may be new discoveries in heaven. One of your questions there, which is coming right after this, is heaven part of our universe? That's one of the ones I don't think so. I don't think so. And there's another question there about multi-universe. Yeah, I think the multi-universe, the idea there. Now, the reason the multi-universe is helpful for atheists is because it explains how this planet got here. I mean, all the evidence is that this place is very unlikely to exist. We talked about the water molecules, dipole moment. If instead of 1.84 device for a dipole moment of water, we make it 1.85, King's College, any of the colleges in London where this planet doesn't exist. The fine-tuning, I mean, this is another reason for the existence of God. The fine-tuning of the universe is extraordinary. All physicists agree with this. There are lots of books on this subject, the privileged planet, all kinds of things. And how do you get around this if you don't believe in God? Well, you pretend that there are billions and billions and trillions and trillions and quadrillions of other universes. And so what if ours is extremely improbable? If there are enough of them, one would work. I don't think it's a very good argument, given that there's no evidence for other universes. I think heaven is outside of this universe. If there are other universes, God made them. I'm not denying that other universes exist. I'm just saying the evidence isn't there yet. If there are other universes, God created them.
So would you say that there are limits to science then? Or how would you describe the limits of science?
Limits to science. I think there are limits to science. You're going to have to ask me more. You have to focus that question a little more. I'm certainly not one that would limit science. I do not have the flu. If you shake my hand, you're not going to get sick.
No, so in terms of talking about the existence of God and issues of evil, mid-mention of scientism, do you think that science can explain everything? Or there is a limit to science?
No, I don't think. If you're a believer in scientism, like Richard Dawkins, who says love is very complicated computing equipment. Now, I tried this one out on my wife, and I said, sweetheart, how would you feel if I came home one night and said love is some very complicated computing equipment? She didn't like this. She said, Fritz, here in Georgia, it's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and I don't think you'd enjoy sleeping in the garage every night. So I don't think love can be explained in mathematical terms. No, I don't think science can. I don't want to put any limits on science, but I don't think science can explain everything.
If I move on to the next question, is there another question for?
Oh, okay.
So you mentioned the process through which you went to realize why God created everything and the necessary response and everything. But what was the initial catalyst for it? It sure was something you were wondering about your entire life, but were there like specific moments you can point out that made you ask, a lot of questions, or like they got you a lot of answers?
Good question. I was never an atheist. I didn't know who God was or what that meant, anything of the sort, but I was never an atheist. As far back as I can remember, I love nature. Okay, I'm a nature lover. My wife and I love to go to beautiful places, go on walks. We used to go on very strenuous hikes. We go on nice walks now. And just being out there and taking it all in, to me, the idea that it just happened was not tenable. So that was long before I became a Christian. Yesterday morning, my wife and I woke up in Watkinsville, Georgia, went out for a walk, saw a beautiful sunrise, a beautiful, beautiful sunrise coming right up over the trees. So I was never an atheist. Yeah. I always thought there was something. I just didn't have any idea what it was.
So I think the follow-up question will be, what made you move to Christianity, not only other religion, to look for what that thing is? Why didn't you seek for it maybe in Islam or Buddhism, but you went to Scripture?
Good. Well, as I said, I knew nothing about Jesus growing up, but I had heard a few things. I'd heard a few things, and he seemed interesting. And I'd been told there's one book that told the story, and so at age 17 I said, I better look into this book. And I was looking into that book for 11 years before I became a Christian, but that was my curiosity about Jesus was what led me to begin reading the Bible one chapter a day for 11 years.
That's amazing. Thank you. Then let me, yeah.
Within your field, what has been something that you've discovered or had privy to have like knowledge of that you think has been astounding in terms of the existence of God, or that like has supported your faith or encouraged your faith, or something that's just so beautiful or amazing that you're like, there has to be a God?
Okay, this is going to give me 5 minutes for science? Yes. Is that okay? Yeah. You know, it's embarrassing to say that my most important scientific discovery was made 54 years ago. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing, but true. Okay, now, so I'll tell that story. That's just a 5-minute story. You had to get a little bit of chemistry in this. So there we are. Yes. 1970, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry is going to be given out tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I think the ship has sailed in my case. I think there was a good chance 10 years ago. I think the ship has sailed, but we'll see. Anyway, 71 Nobel Prize in Hertzberg, in chemistry, Gerhard Hertzberg from Ottawa, Canada. This is how the Nobel citation read. Hertzberg's contributions are to the field of atomic and molecular spectroscopy. He and his associates have determined the structures of a large number of diatomic and polyatomic molecules, including the structures of many free radicals, difficult to determine in any way, among those methylene CH2. So this is really a historic discovery by Gerhard Hertzberg. He did it 11 years before he got the Nobel Prize. Okay? Now, this is my most important paper, amazing. We have published more than 1,700 papers since this one. This is not the only one, but it is. And you know, it is true with a lot of scientists that some of the very first things they do are the best. I don't know why that is. For mathematicians, it's especially true. You know, after you're 30 years of age, you can't do anything good in mathematics. You don't have enough brain cells left to do hard things. So this is it. New theoretical evidence for the nonlinearity of the triplet ground state of methylene. What was different about this paper? This is quantum mechanics. We're applying quantum mechanics to chemistry to look at a problem which appeared to have been solved by Hertzberg. Such an important problem, we thought, well, we'll look at this, and at least we ought to be able to confirm what the experiment did. The work was, it was on the revolutionary side. These are early days for quantum chemistry, early days. I mean, basically, we couldn't do anything. Charles Bender and I had been spending all of our time developing new quantum mechanical methods, and we needed something to try them out on, and methylene was it. CH2 was it. So here's the methylene structure. This is what Hertzberg got the Nobel Prize for, the molecule being linear. The structures of molecules are really important, y'all. Some of you know that, and others don't. This is the structure that Hertzberg got the Nobel Prize. He didn't just get the Nobel Prize for the structure. He made the stuff and recorded its electronic spectrum. So, but this is the structure he deduced from experiment, and this is the one that Bender and I said was the right answer, that the molecule is bent. And this is a big difference. We could talk for a long time about this. It's bent 135, and this is what we said in opposition to the greatest physical chemist in the world. But thankfully, it's a good thing I was right. This was still just finishing my first year at Berkeley, and at Berkeley, our system in the U.S. is a lot more vicious than yours is. At Berkeley, when you're named an assistant professor, you've got about a 1/3 chance of survival. 2/3 of the time, after 5 or 6 or 7 years, going to be said, they'll tell you, we love you, but you need to find employment elsewhere. If I had been in this paper, Bender and I were very young. We just said, Hertzberg has misinterpreted his experiment. Nobody was better at interpreting experiments than Hertzberg. It's impossible. But we said it, and if I'd been wrong, I would have been among the 2/3 that go on to look for jobs elsewhere. Anyway, I could say more about this. This is a little description from a colleague at Caltech in Science Magazine. Everyone is, like a lot of other words, has a context. Everybody that was interested in chemistry, everyone believed the molecule to be linear until accurate theoretical studies finally led Bender and Schaefer to insist in 1970 that CH2 is bent by 135 degrees. Indirect experimental evidence for such highly bent CH2 came quickly. So that's it. I wasn't a Christian then. I was happy with the result. I was happy with the result. What was your question again? I did have things like that, though, later on.
It was, what have you found within your experimentation over the years, your discoveries, or just in quantum, chemistry that has supported your belief in God?
Yeah, that's good. Can you make this go all the way to the end? Yeah, so I don't have to keep doing that. Okay, let's go forward a little bit. 1990, my student Brenda Thies is working on the molecule Si2H2. We thought it'd be interesting, a thing to do. We're interested in small molecules, what quantum mechanics can do for it. And she found something that was just unprecedented and amazing. Si2H2 is isoelectronic with acetylene. Acetylene is a very linear molecule. To bend it takes a lot of energy. So everybody was thinking that Si2H2 ought to be the same. Silicon is right below carbon in the periodic table. Is it the very end? Yeah, that's, yeah. You can have that. I'm going to have to go back a little bit. Oh, I've got to show that. Yeah, I'll show some of these. Let's go back. I'm going to answer this question, though. I was astonished with this structure. I never thought anything like this was possible. And virtually the rest of the scientific world that was interested in such things, that's everybody, was amazed. This structure has the 2 silicon atoms are next to each other. There's one hydrogen on the end and one in between the 2 silicons. It's an amazing structure. And my response to that was, wow. So that's how God did it. And thankfully, experiments came along that showed we were right. Oh, you're going through there much faster than I am. This is wonderful. Oh, now I want to, not that one. No, that's, you didn't ask that question. You're not going to get the answer. We're not going to talk about the problem of evil unless people have to. Yeah. Oh, we need to go. Yeah, I want to go back a ways. Yeah, backwards. Oh, we didn't want to go all the way back. We're getting somewhere. Just keep going. It's a long way still. It's toward the back, but it's before we talk about the problem of evil. Yeah, we're not going to talk about the problem of evil here, unless somebody needs to know about it. Right there. Yeah, okay. Perfect. Now I want to go forward one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh. What has the homecoming queen been doing all this time that I've been a nerd? She's an elementary school teacher. Yeah. And that's why she can't come with me, because she's still teaching. She teaches elementary school. She teaches Latin to elementary school students. And she loves it, and they love her too. You can see that. Yeah. So that's that. I have these three wonderful pictures. This one is a picture of me and our head football coach. Football is a big deal in the USA. It's not like your football. Your football is played everywhere. Our football is only played in North America. But the football coach is a wonderful person. He came for my birthday one day. Mark Richt is a wonderful Christian man. And the next slide shows the homecoming queen. She doesn't like me. If you ever meet my wife, don't say anything about her being the homecoming queen. Never, never, never. I mean, she is really smart. She would much rather be thought of as a smart person than a homecoming queen. Anyway, I was invited to, and my wife, we were invited to go to Berlin. This is one of these summers we were staying in Munich. And we were invited to go to Berlin to a meeting of the Brandenburg Berlin Academy of Sciences. And it was only a one morning meeting, so it was tolerable. We listened to a bunch of nerds talk. And then my dear friend, Joachim Sauer, professor at the Humboldt University in Berlin, he'd invited us. They said, please have your wife come and bring some comfortable walking shoes, and we'll go on a hike together in our country home. So we get into this minivan, and we start heading north from Berlin. About an hour. And we get to less and less populated roads. Finally, there's just a very rough dirt road that goes on for about an hour, and we come into a little village of 7 homes. And who comes out to greet us but the most famous woman in the world? Anybody recognize her? My wife is the most wonderful person in the world, but the most famous woman in the world, and probably still so, is right there. That's Angela Merkel. She comes out, and she's got curry soup for us for lunch. She's got a raspberry cake, and then we're there all till 10 o'clock at night having cheese with her, and and we go on the hike too. She and my wife spent all the time talking to each other. I was just talking to the nerds. But she is a nerd. She has a PhD in quantum chemistry. And her husband is also a nerd. He's a famous professor of quantum chemistry. He and I are the best of friends, and that's how we met Angela Merkel. So, yeah. I think the world would be a better place if she were still the prime minister of Germany. But that's as close to a political environment as I'm going to make now. Oh no. Yeah, that's only the second edition. I've got the third edition. I'll send you a few copies. Some of these people are real scholars. They can take a look at it. But, yeah. Okay.
I think because of time, you'll end here. If there's any other question, just like I think there's one part of the slides. If you're not a Christian and you are interested, you can want to talk via Zoom. Just email us, and we can also help arrange that as well. Can we give an applause to Professor Schaefer? Thank you so much. Yes.
I'll come. back next year, we can talk about the problem of evil.
Thank you so much, Professor Schaefer. I think we are almost at the end of our time here. A quick announcement will be this coming Sunday, we are meeting at 9 to 10:20. So if you are interested, we meet at, let's make this slide. Yeah. Again, we meet at St. Margaret's venue, St. Margaret's, Ludbury. It's just 5 minutes walk from the exit 1, exit 2. And we'll be talking about theism and atheism, God and science. To be a video that we'll be watching, then we'll be having a discussion on that. So if you're interested, just get in touch with me or any of the leaders here as well. So, and please, we have still some snacks and some tea. Don't be in a haste to leave. If you want to have a chat or take some pictures with Professor Schaefer, for those who are watching us, sorry you cannot take a picture with him, but so if you want to, he's not in a rush to leave currently, so if you want to continue with the discussion, this will be it. So thank you very much for coming. This ends our talk for the evening. Thank you.